but because like it was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, it works, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. How do you feel when you're like sat like this?
better.
Yeah, I feel better too.
Whether it's placebo or not, it's better.
So there's a few more. So there's that one, I think, is asserting dominance and power, where it helps you recalibrate.
Yeah.
This one is supposedly just control.
Mm.
So if you're like a CEO, you're in a board meeting, whatever, you probably sit like this, in control, you're collected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only two I know. And then that's one as well, but I think that might be devil worship. So
That was a pinkies too.
don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, I didn't do that one.
Yeah.
I do actually, so I do this and then I connect the feet too.
I see. Okay, good. I feel amazing. Mate, that's
Never
dope.
felt better.
Mate, I'm full Alex Hormozy today. Shorts, hat, wife beater, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Mate, I think it'd be really cool to talk about. So how old are you?
19.
Which is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And we're in Bali
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. You're 19. How did you kind of get here? And, you know, how are you supporting yourself doing this essentially? Because, man, when I was 19, I was in university getting drunk and eating bad food. I was making terrible decisions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, how did you get here? How did that come around?
So it all kind of started like growing up, my parents didn't have a ton of money. So that instilled something in me that like a hunger
Yeah.
to need to like go and get that. And that led to me consuming kind of more financial based content on Instagram. And then of course, you know how the algorithm works. It shows you what you want to see. And since I started consuming more and more, I fell into that rabbit hole. And then, yeah, it was kind of just, I got into crypto and stocks and crypto during the crash. I thought it was amazing, but I mean, a blind man could have put in money to that market and came out with a W. So that's like when I really actually started getting into it, because I always was consuming, but that was the first time that I actually like put something on the line, whether it's like my time or my money. And I think the part of that was because I just had so much time on my hand because of the lockdowns, right? And had a lot of thinking as well. And actually I found Chris Johnson. And then I bought his courses, and then so I jumped in the markets, and then that led me to, I bought my first car with my profit.
Congratulations.
And then I graduated from high school, and I kind of like at that point the markets kind of were going like this. So nothing was going crazy, and I was like, okay, like maybe I need to get a job. I planned on going to university for a 1-year entrepreneurship program. So I was taking a gap year to save up and these things. So I chose to work labor jobs strictly for the reason that I could listen to podcasts all day.
That's great, yeah.
So I was working 10, 12 hours a day, and I was listening to like 4 to 5 podcasts a day of like the most successful people in every field, pretty much. So I was consuming a lot of this content, like a lot of it, but I didn't really do anything.
Okay.
So for a year I was working construction, and I was consuming stuff, but I was never really taking any action. And then this is when I was about 18.
Yes.
And something kind of came up, and I was put in a situation where I needed to move out. And me being forced to move out, I was like, okay, I know that, like I've seen many people talk about leave your hometown, and I actually had an opportunity right as the situation came up to leave my hometown and move into another city in Canada. So I took the opportunity to move out of my hometown, move to this another city, but my job was going to be the same thing, construction. So I jumped into landscaping construction, and it wasn't the best, it wasn't the greatest. Still, I was consuming the podcast all day long. And this is when I think it was the combination of me working such long, hard hours, not having any time, not having any energy, and at the end of the month, still not having very much money, compiled with because I had to pay my own bills and like all that. Whereas like when I was at home, I was still comfortable because I had money and whatnot. But at this point, I was waking up miserable. I didn't have money to like really do anything. I literally felt trapped. Like I was in the matrix because I was, right? And so I started consuming Iman Ghazi's content of like how to make money online. There's a specific video, it's his most popular video, and he's like comparing the different business models, right? So I watched that video, and I mean, of course it's a bit biased, but he says the agency was the best model. And I mean, I agree, it is the best model for beginners that have zero capital, right? And I already had the skill of graphic design from high school. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start an agency, and that's what I did. So I went on Facebook groups and I started typing, is your business falling behind this new online world, blah, blah, blah. And I got my first graphic design client, which was a logo. She paid me, I think, $175 to design her logo, which she never even ended up using. And it was the worst client I've ever had.
That was your first one?
It was my first one. It was a very good lesson. But that was actually like the first day I posted. The first day I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this. So I got kind of lucky with that. And then I was still going to work. And I think this was like the second day after I was working with her, designing her logo. I went to work and I was like, there's another day of just hatred. Like, I hated the work.
Yeah.
The only thing I looked forward to was lunch and just being able to like do my work subconsciously while consciously listening to a podcast. Like, that was my whole goal.
Yeah.
And then the boss texted me as I got home from that work day and was like, oh, by the way, you have to be in at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Like, you have to be on site at 5 a.m. And that was the last straw for me. I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, I'm gonna sleep in tomorrow, and I'm gonna start working on something that I actually want to work on. And if everything goes to shit, and if I go into debt or whatever it may be, I don't care, as long as I was doing something that I wasn't miserable doing.
Okay.
So basically, I sent him a text. I was like, I'm not coming in tomorrow. And yeah.
That's great, man.
So then, I mean, yeah, and then that led me to, I was struggling a lot during the first couple months.
Yeah.
And I was basically forced to move back to my hometown after my lease in the town that I moved to ended. So I was forced to move back to my hometown into my step uncle's house. And it was okay situation, but the environment was just not the best. And I mean, I was back in my hometown, like the environment that I grew up in, the environment that I was beating all these other things, right? And I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. Like, I need to surround myself with the right people, but like, where can I go? I don't really have that much money. Like, I can't afford to have a high quality of living anywhere else in Canada, really. Like, okay, where can I go? And then that's when the idea of Bali came into my head. Like, okay, maybe I could go to Bali. Maybe. Like, that could be a possibility, right? Because at this time, I still had the possibility of getting my own apartment in my hometown, which my plan was to isolate myself. But since I didn't have like a steady income and I had to get a cosign, my parents ended up not co-signing me. I mean, maybe it was smart for them. And so I was like, okay, like, I can't get the apartment. And when I got the news that I was not going to get the apartment, I was actually out of town. I was in the States visiting my friend. And I got the news, I was like, okay, like, I need to do something. So on the flight home, I searched up Digital Nomad on Apple Podcasts, and I found a guy called Riley Bennett's podcast. And I listened to an episode, and it was just talking about his journey from like leaving the United States, coming to like Bali or Thailand, whatever it was, and how like changed his life. And basically I got off the flight and I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm moving to Bali.
Beautiful.
Like, that's what it was. Sold my car, sold everything, and booked my flights. Yeah, all in. Booked my flights, and now I'm here.
Beautiful, man. How long have you been in now?
I've been here 6 months.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. When I sort of first met you, you seemed you've got kind of a good lay of like a network. You know a lot of people. How's that been from going from a small town in Canada to then kind of being surrounded by not just a completely different country, but a completely different way of working, a completely different group of people? What was that experience like, kind of transitioning into that? And did you find it sort of overwhelming at first? How did you find networking? Curious about that.
So at the beginning, of course, I was like a beginner of the beginner, right? and it was hard to network, right? The main place I was networking was the gym,
Mm-hmm.
which was good, and I started meeting people that were like making good money online, and I thought they were like gods at that point, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I kept doing that, and then I ended up meeting Martin. You've met
Yeah.
Martin at Tribal, and then when I stayed at Tribal, that's when I started meeting everyone else, and then we started going to events together, and then we went to Capital Club event, and we sort of just like built this huge network in Bali.
Yeah.
And then of course through all those events, we met so many different people that are making a lot of money online. So that became very normal to me. Of like, oh, like that's something he's doing, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do the same thing, right? And I mean, I also did realize that like they're human beings too, you know. Just because they make this amount online doesn't mean they're like God, or just because they have this amount of followers does not mean they're God either, right? But yeah, like at the beginning, I guess it was hard because I mean, I didn't know where to go and that sort of thing. And I mean, now I could tell someone exactly where to go if they just arrived. But yeah.
So I think this is a really interesting point, because it's interesting, as you said, you meet someone who perhaps you've seen them online, or you meet them and they're saying, oh, I'm doing 40K this month, and it's just normal to them. Which is, I find great. I think it's great. It's great to speak about people. Oh yeah, kind of like, oh yeah, they're doing around this, they're doing around this. It's great. I think it's great because it makes you realize what's possible, makes you work harder, and it makes you realize, oh, if you're doing it, I can do it then.
Yeah.
No problem.
Exactly.
Right, okay, I'll do what similar to you. I'll learn from you, because clearly if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really helpful to be surrounded by, people who are earning more than you. That's really important. Get your ego out of the way. That's who you want to be surrounded by. So, yeah, what I guess then is kind of, you said that it's interesting actually seeing these people. How do you find a way? I actually did a video on networking yesterday. How do you find a way to either sort of provide value for them, or to, get into that circle and to be considered in the conversation as well? Okay, how does that look for you, and how have you gone around that?
Yeah, I think ultimately just like I would genuinely say your vibe, because like people can feel a vibe, right?
Yes.
And like, especially based on the type of questions that you ask, will determine of like what level you are, right? And they're not going to ask you to show your bank account, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you like are vibrating at a certain frequency, right, and you know certain things, and I mean your Instagram's a huge one. If your Instagram looks a certain way, like I said, they're human, you're human, right? They're not like gods or anything. So really getting into those circles are just a matter of being at the right places with the right people, and then meeting them. And yeah, like they're not terrible people either. They're very nice people most of the time. So yeah, they'll just, hey, what's up? My name's this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
I think that's great. I think what you touched upon there, vibe, is very important, and it's all about frame. And I think where a lot of people go wrong, or they go wrong with networking in general, is they come across as wanting something. You have to go into every interaction completely fine with them hating you, if that's kind of how it ends. Like, you don't need anything from anyone. And if you can go into any social situation like that, you win. You win the social situation, because if someone doesn't like you, all right, I don't need anything from you. If someone really, really likes you, all right, great. It has to be the same response both times. And I think one of the interesting ways to kind of go around that is to know, sort of your own worth, but your own value. And if you are somebody, does, like you said, no one's going to be checking your bank account. It's not like, right, scan this and then you can get in. But if you know that you're someone who you're heading in a particular direction, and you've done this today, you've trained, you've done this, you've hit all of the things that are moving you in the direction you should be moving in. That's unparalleled confidence, Yeah,
I think you hit it exactly right on the head, and that's what I was kind of meaning to say, but you put it into amazing words. Just about, like, these people don't care where you are. Like I said, they're not going to check your bank account, but as long as they can understand and know that you're heading in the direction that they might be in, or that they're also headed, that's all that really matters, right? If you're training, if you're working, if you're eating, whatever, if you're just in that direction, well, that's all they really care about. They don't want to be, they're not going to be surrounded by people that aren't going the same direction as them, Right? So I think that's all it really is too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, man. I think, like you said, that same direction. It's if you're heading in that direction, you are probably already a valuable person, and just going to become more valuable because you're aware that that's what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, it's about being valuable, providing services, serving others however you can. So you're going to be a great person to have a relationship with. So what I wanted to ask you, because look, you're 19 years old, which again, I say is fucking incredible that you're here and you're making it work and you went all in. That's fucking awesome. Me at 19, clueless, bro. Compared to where you are now, like absolutely clueless. Now, you know, we've been talking and chatting about various things, but you have you have your agency and you have an offer, you know that you're doing outreach for, and how did you get into kind of like, I know you said you watched a lot of finance, YouTube, etc. How did you, let's go with sort of like offer building, okay? Because here's my own gripe. I work with a lot of professionals, experts, and we turn their skill into a business. You are someone who understands that if you present an offer online, you got your first gig with a girl or a lady making a logo. If you put the intention out there, you have an offer, you know, there is a market for it. And I feel like one of my biggest challenges with my marketing is to just let these people know that if you have an offer, you can make a bunch of money online. But if you don't, you know, kind of know any of this and you don't have any frameworks, mate, there's so many people sitting on a gold mine, like a literal gold mine. So in terms of you building and refining an offer, what's that process been like? Because you said obviously you had your skills and then you landed upon that initial offer. What's the process of refining it been, building it, you know, fully fleshing it out, and then outreaching, changing it, whatever? What's that process been like for you?
Yeah, so I think at the beginning it was just a matter of like, okay, what can I do? Like, what can I do to help someone? And then it kind of changed more into, okay, what can I figure out how to do? And then, okay, what can I figure out how to make someone else do? And then ultimately, the biggest thing that helped me was Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers, in the terms of like how to frame the offer and how to create the offer. But like, it's just a matter of like being able to provide something to the marketplace that the marketplace wants.
Yes.
And being able to provide it in a certain way that, like the book says, they'll feel stupid saying no.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was ultimately just the fact of like being confident of like what I can do, right? So when I wasn't confident about the offer, then I wasn't doing very well.
Yeah.
When I'm very confident about an offer, then that's a lot better, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of times, like people limit their offer to what they can do, like what I was doing way before. And now it's more so for me of what I can figure out how to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone comes to me and wants something, I'll never say no now, because there's always someone that I know, or there's always some way that I can figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's a saying, it's not how but who.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember we were talking about something earlier. I won't go into too many details, but I really like that, and you're kind of leveraging other people's talents. You know, that is something that you can do. It's like, right, you can figure out how to do something. You can outsource this there, you can outsource this there, and you can still provide the result. You know, but you obviously have to have that wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
You have to be in the game first. You know, and then you kind of start exploring these avenues.
That's for sure.
So yeah, man, like, how do you find, because I mean, let's maybe have a little chat bit about your offer, because I think it's a really interesting offer, working with building personal brands. Who's your clientele? What do you deliver? And yeah, kind of how did you land on that, and why is that valuable at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, so my clientele is entrepreneurs, and of course that's a very broad term. So it could be someone, an e-com business owner, a drop shipper, mindset coach, whatever it is, whoever's selling a product or service online, and even just like entrepreneurs that have made their money and now they want to maybe get a message out, or they want to do something not necessarily fully money driven. So basically I help entrepreneurs build, scale, and then monetize their personal brand. And what I mean by that is basically we'll build your front end, which is your brand and your content. So when I look at your page, we'll do everything there. and then your back end, so your actual sales funnel. So how you're gonna capture that attention that you're gaining and actually turn it into cash. Because I mean, you can get 1 million views, but if you don't have a link in your bio that does this, or whatever, then how are you gonna get that money out of those views, out of that attention?
Yeah.
Right. So I help entrepreneurs do that, and I think it's really valuable because people are understanding the value of building a personal brand. You know, people buy from people, right? I know so many businesses that switch from like a brand, kind of like, for example, agencies, right? I know so many agency owners that switch from an agency page of like graphic post no face logo to their own face. And it's because it's true, people buy from people. So yeah, I think putting your face behind your company and putting a personality and just like someone to trust is really beneficial for business. Especially if you're selling like an offer, like a digital product or like a coaching, something like this, mentorship, whatever it may be. Very, very important to have a face behind that. And yeah, it's also like, if you can build an email list, that's owned media.
Yes.
Right? No one can take that away from you. You can lose your followers, you can lose, whatever, your subscribers, but no one can take your email list away from you.
Yeah.
And if you have, let's say, an email list of 25,000 people, you'll always have 25,000 people that you can just sell to.
Yes.
So.
And I think what's so valuable, and like you said, people are more and more realizing this, and it's great that you can provide this, as they often don't know where to start. But I think it's from $100 million offers as well. But people buy from others that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
So know, like, and trust. So how do you do that? How do you do that? And it's exactly as you described. Yeah. You need to get your face on social media. You need to talk about not just your product. You need to talk about your opinions. You need to talk about your values. You need to talk about your lifestyle. Yeah. And I can't tell you, I have this thing that I kind of teach my guys called T-shaped people, and I've nicked it from Google. This is what Google look to employ T-shaped people, which is basically they're like that horizontal plane. They know a bunch of stuff. They can, basically they'd be able to talk to most people. They have interests in loads of things, but then there's one thing, boom, that they can go deep in. They can go really, really deep in that one thing, and they're an expert there. But they can still connect with all of these other people. Now, I like to think of a personal brand in a similar way. Your personal brand should be all of these things. I can't tell you, I've signed clients because I've posted like the coffee I'm having, and then someone's reached out and been like, literally being like, oh yeah, well, if you're here, you should try this shop. It's great. They do a great V60. I'm like, oh, thanks. I see your, and then they're in the appointment setting sequence. Yeah. But it gave them a reason to reach out to me. So, and I'm not saying that that's why you do it, but what was that? Know, like, and trust. Okay, they liked me. They liked me because it was a relatable point. So by not sharing that kind of sort of stuff, I mean, obviously do keep, you don't have to, when you're going to the toilet and everything, but share as much as you can, okay? Because it helps people to trust you. Yeah. And I think there's a saying, I think it's like, well, not a saying, but a rule that people need to view about 7 hours of content from you, usually, before they really, really trust you. So how do you do that, How do you do that? So I think that's like an interesting thing to think about. But also with this idea of a personal brand, this kind of T, this long horizontal plane, it's great to have that area of expertise. But let's say in 2-3 years' time, you want to have an offer in a slightly different field. Because you've been talking about all of these variety of things, let's say you had a mindset offer and now you have like a business coaching offer, or you have, I don't know, like a skateboarding offer, and you've been posting about that, whatever. But it makes sense that you can, boom, have your offer here, 2-3 years, absolutely nail it. And then do you know what? I'm going to re-enter the market over here with the skateboarding tricks offer. But you've been posting about it for the last 3 to 4 years. So people are like, cool. And you're building potential, you're connecting with people this way that even though they might not buy from you today, there'll be an aspect of you that they like, that when you do have a product in the future, you have something, then they're going to buy from you then. So it's just, I think it's a really, really nice way to kind of approach a personal brand. And I see a lot of bad advice on the internet where people say, just be the expert in this one particular thing. And you'll see it on Instagram, like the sales coach expert for pregnant women. And like that's all they post about, you know? Yeah. And then suddenly they change their offer slightly, but they've built an audience full of pregnant women in sales. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know kind of what you think about any of that.
I think I want to add to that point of like the changing offers.
Yeah.
So Danco talks about this of how as like creators grow, as they evolve as a person, as their brand, they pivot, right?
Yeah.
So if you're someone that's looking to get into this space, if you're looking to build a personal brand and you see, let's say a niche that you want to go into is very saturated, understand that the highest person in there is probably eventually going to pivot one day. Like there's always space because as the top people, like they're moving over to that next offer. So it makes room for the bottom people to come up and grow.
Yeah.
At one point they're at the bottom too.
Yeah.
Right. So if people are like, oh, there's already 1,000 people doing that, doesn't really matter.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I love Danco. Danco is great. But it's interesting you said about pivoting, but also, like you said, once they've been in it 5 years, their offer realistically is probably going to be aimed, you know, so let's say if you're just starting out making money online, you don't want to be being mentored by someone who made money online 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a really terrible idea, you know? You want someone who's literally making money online now, and they're just like, I don't say like 2 or 3 steps, but like 2 or 3 seasons ahead of you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because they're relevant. They're in it. They're in it daily, learning, adapting, and giving you unbelievable information. And I think that's interesting as well, because I think obviously, you know, sometimes some people tend to lean towards like following or whatever it is, but then they actually make the wrong choice because they've gone with someone who's selling something really, really outdated. And I see it all the time with people who have been taught organic, like cold outreach through Instagram, which was like maybe worked 5 years ago. Even then, it was not a good strategy. I think it's slightly different for agencies, but particularly with a coaching offer, that is the quickest way to annoy prospects, or just you're literally on the internet annoying people for an hour a day. Like, there's no way to make money. So it's really interesting. I think you've like kind of identified a really, really interesting space here. What's the big plan? Like, let's say, as much as you want to talk about it, where do you want to go with this? And personally, how are you looking to sort of develop, evolve, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think I want to, with my own personal brand, is kind of like do the one-person business model similar to Danco, and, you know, have my digital products and be putting out amazing content, tons of value, and just be helping a lot of people. And in return, I put out value to the marketplace, I receive value back, right? Beyond that, I want to, I think, move my business I have now, or create a business in the future around SaaS, some sort of SaaS.
Yeah.
And I also, I mean, that could be aligned with the one-person business model as well. And then beyond that, I have another business idea for a tech product, tech invention, I would say. And yeah, so I think that's like something I've thought about since I was like a kid. It's like a problem that I think it's a very niche problem for me personally, but I think it's a problem that could help a lot of people, or that would help a lot of people. Cool. And then, I think ultimately, like, I like being creative. I like creating like cool videos, and I describe it in a way of like displaying my thoughts in videos, or displaying my feelings in videos. So like, okay, this is how I feel, and then it makes you feel hopefully the similar way, right? I really, really enjoy doing that. So I think in the future, to be able to just do that and have my businesses and help people, you know, help my younger self pretty much, is I think what I want to do.
I love that, man.
I think I talk about always like, I want to help people, of course, you know, I want to help my family, I want to help those who are in need, but the biggest way I want to help people is I want to help people help themselves, right? Because ultimately you can't really help someone unless they want to help themselves. And I
love that, man. That's such a, it's funny, I mean, it's business, but it's also deeply spiritual principles as well. It's service. Business is service. And I think the reason if a lot of people are honest that they maybe don't get into the space or they don't have success on the space, is because they think, right, how can I get in and get out for me? Like, what can I, and they're thinking about the money, they're thinking about, but if you go in, like you've said at various points throughout doing this now, you've talked about helping people, you've talked about a service, you talked about how can I be of value to others. These are questions that aren't often asked. And I know I'm speaking from experience myself. When I was in university, this wasn't something has it gone off?
I think so. Yeah. Fuck, I don't know.
Does it have a 30-minute thing?
Yeah. At least we got the audio.
We got the
We
audio.
can put B-roll. I think it's only a couple minutes.
Just this, yeah. Just take a picture of
We'll do
that.
AI.
Yeah, maybe we'll do AI. We'll suddenly get turned into robots or something.
But actually, we could easily do that. Seriously, I would just take a snippet, make a mid-journey, and then do a DID with the voiceover. I could do that in like probably 10 minutes.
Sweet, do that then. That's funny. That's a funny story behind it as well. Yeah, man. I think what would be interesting in hearing from you is someone who's kind of just got into this space and you're killing it, man. What would you say to people who they want to make money online? They kind of want the digital freedom lifestyle, to meet people, have cool experiences. What would you do? How did you get into it? What's the best steps?
So I think the first step that I took and the first step that I recommend to everybody is look at what you already have in terms of skills and see what you can stack on top of that. For example, I had the skill of graphic design and I chose to stack marketing and sales on top of that, right? That led me to my agency. You might be better at something else. Maybe it's cooking for you, right? And maybe you decide to stack that with content creation. Now you have 1 million followers on TikTok. It's not that it's not that easy, but it's just like for an example, the way to stack things, and then ultimately just fucking start. It's so cliche, but just start, because by starting, by doing that logo and it's imperfect, by doing this and that, it leads you down the path of learning everything that you need to learn.
Yeah.
Whereas if like I've spoken to a guy here in Bali recently, a younger guy. He's here more of vacation, but he's trying to figure things out, and he's too afraid to start because he overthinks everything. Everything has to be perfect, and he'll be like that for the rest of his life until he understands that it's never going to be perfect. And the only way to actually progress is to start imperfectly.
Yeah.
So yeah, look at what you're already good at, see what you can pursue, what you can stack on top of that, and then just start.
Love that, man.
Yeah.
And don't get over the paralysis by perfection.
Yeah.
I think is the phrase.
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I love that. Just start and keep going. And like you said, you open one door and then you solve a few problems. You're like, oh, there's more problems to solve here.
Yeah.
And then that leads you to that next stage. And then like, oh, well, there's more problems here as well.
Yeah.
But all of those problems you're solving are knowledge.
Yeah.
And okay, right, well, what is a payment processor? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, even if you start from square one, just start asking questions, getting curious. Like, what is marketing? Even if you have to start there, do it. And now you know. Like, and now you find like a few keywords, you learn what a funnel is. Like, you just have to just keep peering in those doors, peering a new door, and then just you find out more stuff. There's no trick, is there? There's no magic.
No.
It's just like, be curious about it, and don't stop being curious about it, and you'll get there. But I like what you said about figure out where your skill is currently and leverage that. I saw something crazy a while ago, but there's like a lady online who's making over 10k a month selling tutorials on how to build chicken coops. She's making 10k a month selling tutorials on how to build a chicken coop. And like, and you can't think of something, you know? She's doing it. She's making 10k a month. Like, and that we have valuable skills. I think a lot of the time it's a self-confidence thing with people. They don't realize that there's a load in them.
Yeah, I think a thing that definitely helped me was, since I consumed like so much of this of podcasts and like the entrepreneurial mindset content for so long, that I had a very strong mindset going into it. And I think one thing that I realized that I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, obviously you care a bit, you don't want people to hate you. But in terms of just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there to be vulnerable, to be hated on, or whatever it may be, was very important for me. And to be able to do that is very hard, but it's very possible. And if you think that you can't, maybe you can't today, but it's something that you can learn or something that you can adopt. But yeah, I think it's very important to have that strong mindset.
Yeah, and I think realizing, I love that, man, like you are being vulnerable, but any story, if you watch any Disney movie, I say that because everyone has that kind of shared experience, the hero is not the hero until like the last 5 minutes of the film. You don't start the hero. The interesting bit is that they start here, they're Aladdin, he's a thief, he's stealing stuff, whatever, X, Y, Z. And it's literally usually the last like 5 minutes or less that they're the hero. Because once they're the hero, the story's it's boring.
Yeah.
You know? So the reason I'm saying that is this is like all of the exciting part. When you start, document it, whatever you're doing, because that is the story.
Yeah.
You can't just enter as the hero because no one cares anymore. You know, tell the story, and like that's, as Gary Vee says, what does he say? He's like, he just says like document or record the process. That's your content. Just record what you learned today. You know, that's a great place to start with your content. So yeah, I really like that you said that, and yeah, you know, being vulnerable, you are being vulnerable, but that's how people connect with you. Yeah. No one wants to see a perfect person online, you know?
Exactly, and I think the biggest thing also that helped me was realizing that whoever hates on me for what I'm doing is not something that I even want in my life anyways, right? And even if, let's say, I'm speaking about something on a podcast that I truly believe in, and someone disagrees with me, right? It might be a controversial topic. Either way, it doesn't matter that much, because ultimately, do I want to become friends with them? Maybe. Are we going to become business partners? Probably not. Are they going to become my client? Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like the people that disagree, the people that hate, aren't the people that I'm looking to attract into my life anyways.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you don't want to be completely obnoxious and piss people off, but you're totally right. It's a great filter. Talking about things that you genuinely think and believe. And look, everyone should have their mind changed. And that's the great thing about putting what's going on upstairs out online, because there's things that maybe I've said or I've lent into where I'm like, do you know what? Maybe that isn't actually so helpful. I'll lean more into this. And it's a great way of getting feedback of kind of what's going on upstairs. Now, unless you're like deeply racist or something, I don't suggest doing it. But, you know, if you're a good person, share what you're thinking about, because, you know, it's good to be challenged and to, you know, have things pop back up in your face sometimes. But like you said, it's a great filter as well. Some people aren't ready to hear. Like, I pissed someone off. What did I say? I was like, learning to say no is a superpower. And they hated it. They went out of their way to message me and tell me how much they disliked what I said. And I was talking about saying no, work on yourself, you actually get like all this free time, and that you're saying yes to your goals, and you're not being a slave to kind of peer pressure, all this stuff. And I say no to things all the time. I mean, what is it? It's 9 o'clock now, and we're sat in a podcast studio. We could be out, you know, drinking, whatever, girls. But it's because, you know, once you know that you have to sacrifice for things, the things you want in life, otherwise the things you want become the sacrifice. But yeah, what was interesting there was it made me realize like how some people like just get, you know, triggered by these things, and like that's not going to become a client necessarily, maybe, but they're just, you know, but you can't not say those things, because otherwise your message is just wishy-washy and
and
doesn't speak to anyone.
It's funny because you could piss people off for saying that you like meat. Like it's 2023, people are angry that you eat meat. So that just kind of goes to show you that no matter what you actually do, and especially if you're trying to go after something big in life, you'll always get hated on, because as you go after your dreams and your goals, just by you doing that, indirectly exposes all the people that aren't. And
that is a awesome sentence. Indirectly, right, shines a light in their face, hey? Because their option is to either go after their own dreams and goals, or to try and bring you down and be like, well, he's a dickhead. Well, he's greedy. It's like, well, actually, what's going on here? You know? Hate never comes from above. Hate never comes from above.
No, and it's actually funny. My friend yesterday, he got a hate comment, or someone actually DM'd him, just hating on him, and he called him. And the guy that was hating was like, "I'm just jealous, bro," and ended up buying his thing.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
It's true. Like, most of them are just jealous, and
yeah, man.
They wish that they were you, but you being you proves that they aren't who they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like it's maybe not like wishing even. It's the attributes they see in you that, like you said, is shining a light on, or it showcases that they're not fostering those attributes.
Yeah.
They're not taking action on something they've learned.
Mm-hmm.
They're choosing to go to the pub. They're choosing to, you know, sit around and watch silly things on the internet, and that annoys them, and they're annoyed at themselves. You know, there's a great saying, like what happens when you squeeze an orange, like orange juice comes out, and it's the same when you squeeze a person. Like whatever's inside of them comes out. That anger or that jealousy, like that was inside of them. You didn't put that jealousy inside of them. He didn't even know you like your I think it's Cam, was it? Like Cam didn't know that guy existed. So that jealousy had to only exist in that guy.
Yeah.
You know, you can't take these things personally. I love that story though, where he ended up buying something. That's brilliant, man. But man, this has been loads of fun. I'm sure we'll do a few of these, to be fair. But yeah, you're a G. How can people find you and connect
on
with you?
Instagram, Wi-Fi Funded, YouTube, Human Scalar, or just search up my name, Ty Stevens. And yeah, you find either of those, you can find everything else.
Appreciate you. Absolutely killing it. Look forward to the next one.
You as
That's
well.
good fun, man. Yeah, good stuff. Done. Dope.
The AI bit's gonna be funny.